So thank you. We're going to let the other people in, but I'm going to start. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the EPOCH Practice webinar number 10. And this one is a bit special to us because it's also connected to another activity that we are doing in EPOCH Practice, which is the Inspiring Practice Briefs. And today with you, we are going to launch the full compendium of briefs. So we're quite happy about it. The webinar is being recorded at the moment. And it will be available after in the coming days on our YouTube channel, as are the other webinars that we are doing. First, before I start introducing the briefs, I want to say a word about EPOCH Practice, but I'm sure most of you already know about this program. But we are a mutual learning and capacity building program within the European Platform on Combating Homelessness. We were funded for 2 years by the European Union, GIAL from the French government, and the King Baudouin Foundation. We started in January 24, so almost 2 years ago. And since then, we have developed a lot of different activities, such as study visits and webinars like this one. And all our activities are for the members of EPOCH, but also all stakeholders working on homelessness in Europe. Um, and before I let the speakers speak, I have a few slides to introduce the project of the Inspiring Practice Briefs. So give me a second so I can share it with you. So normally you should see it on your screen. I'm going to put it in full screen. Tell me if it's not on your screen. So first, a slide about the timeline of the project, so the Inspiring Practice Briefs. The important information here is that it felt like a 2-year project within a 2-year program, because we really started this activity at the very beginning of EPOCH Practice in January 24 by recruiting the expert from the expert committee. And this expert committee was with us the whole time to help us selecting the practices, also writing the briefs. So they were very helpful in the process. Another important date was mid-May when we launched the open call for inspiring practices. So to gather ideas, we wanted to create a process that was reaching the ground practices, and that's what we did by launching the open call in May. And after a few months of launching the open call, we started the selection process in January this year, 25, with an in-person meeting of the expert committee in Belgium, in Brussels, and then followed a long period of selection and writing the briefs, basically. And here we are today, end of October, with the launch webinar and the publication, and we're very happy about it. And as you can see, it was a very long process. I told you about the expert committee. So here is a slide about the expert committee. You can put faces on this committee. I want to thank them all because they really guide us through all the steps of doing those briefs. And especially last year, they really worked a lot with us when they had to review all the submissions that we received through the open call. So they were um, they were working with us very hard. And I want to thank especially Martinho Diaz and Sarah Coupechoux, because today they are at the webinar as speakers and they will have time to speak at the beginning and the end of this webinar. So thank you. A bit more information about the open call we launched last year in May. We received 64 submissions in total, so that was quite an impressive number. And after receiving all the submissions, we thought we were right about doing it this way because we received very interesting practices from all over Europe, at least 14 countries represented. About 20% of the submissions were policies from local authorities or states, and they were covering multiple issues connected to homelessness, such as health, access to housing, employment, civic rights, women, young people. So very large, multiple issues. The official selection at the beginning of the project, we had in mind 12 practices, briefs. And because we received so many good ones, we raised this number to 15. That's why today in the compendium you have 15 briefs. And an information that I find very useful also for you to know is that when the experts from the expert committee had to review and score all the submissions, They did that based on a list of criteria. And one was the transferability to other parts of Europe. And I think that's an important one. So all the briefs that were written in the compendium, all the projects have partly or like parts or the whole project can be transferable to other contexts in Europe. And I think that's quite helpful to know that. So the compendium, I think most of you already received it by email on Monday morning. I sent it to most of you, and people who registered after that may not have received it, but you have the QR code on the right of your screen, and you can flash it to access it. Um, I'm not going to go through all the list of the practices. I don't think it's really useful, and it's already public knowledge because I published it on LinkedIn. But many of the brief promoters are here with us today, and I think it would be smart to invite them to write in the chat about their practices, the one that were selected in the compendium. So if you feel like it, you can have a sentence or two about your project that was selected for the briefs, and maybe we'll create some kind of discussion later on. What I can say about the briefs is that they are all made the same way. So basically, they have pages. The first one is the ID card of the project, so the main information and the contact information. The second page is the project description to go a bit deeper into the practice, with most of the time a timeline of the project. And third page is the inspiration note with the e-learnings, things that can be transferable to other contexts, and the expert opinion written by someone from the EPOCH practice team or by the experts from the expert committee. Um, we really wanted to create a compendium that is not a frozen document, something that you only read once, but we want it to be a tool to foster collaboration. That's why, in the first place, you can download every brief individually on the website of FIANSA website. So I invite the brief promoters to actually use their brief to advocate for their projects on the European level. That would be interesting. And also for everybody to share the briefs that are interesting to you, and do not hesitate to use the contact information that are on every brief. I think it's very nice if you feel a little bit of frustration after reading a brief because you have questions. I think that's also how we wanted to write them, to create that kind of frustration or like will to know more about it. Just make sure that you use the contact information on every brief. And finally, before I stop talking, the webinar that we have today, I'm going to tell you a bit more about what's coming. So first, after me, there's going to be an introduction by Martinho Diaz, who is one of the experts of the expert committee. He's going to talk more about the expert committee. And then we have two rounds of presentations, followed each time by a Q&A session. Um, each round has talk about two briefs, one that is a policy and the other one that is more like a project from an NGO. And I gave them a rule for the presentation, which is actually two rules: 7-minute presentation maximum and 3 slides of presentation. But I am not a monster, so if things go a bit above, it's totally fine. We have a little bit of time today. The first round, I'm going to present the briefs now and the speaker, so it's done. First presentation will be Empowering Voices. It's about the participation of people experiencing homelessness in the strategy of Budapest. It will be done by Balint Misetics. I hope I said right. He's a senior advisor from the Municipality of Budapest. Then it would be followed by the project from the Netherlands, Mixed Living, and Jora, Wolterink, and Nico Ooms, also I hope I said it right, will be presenting that one. It's a project that is, according to them, a realistic way to do housing first. So that's very interesting to know more about this. And then the second round will start with the presentation by Ben Rickey, who is the Housing First coordinator of the city of Paris. The presentation of the program Streets to Congregate Homes. So it's also very interesting to know more about this. And finally, the last presentation will be Homes for Recovery from Hogar in Spain. And it will be done by Luis Martínez Barriga. And he will be joined by Abdullah Ali Yerrow. And finally, at the very end of this webinar, we'll have a conclusion by Sarah Coupechoux, who is the Europe lead of Fondation pour le Logement in France. Voila. I will stop here and I will let Martinho do the introduction. Martinho,
Okay, hi.
the floor is
Can you
yours.
all listen to me? Can you listen? Okay.
Perfectly.
So, just a small paragraph before I start. So I work as a peer worker in Lisbon, in the city of Lisbon, in the outreach teams of an association called CRESCER for the last 8, 9 years of my life. And I belong to the experts by experience. I was invited by my executive director through an invitation from Fianza. And as Arno said at the beginning, I do belong to the experts by experience group too. And I was part of this committee too. So I made a small introduction about how it was for me and what I think about it. So I'm gonna do it now. So, hi, my name is Martino again. I'm a peer worker, an expert by experience, and someone who learned to survive in the cracks where policy ends and real life begins. I didn't come here shaped by theory. I came here shaped by the streets, by resilience, by the quiet wars people fight inside themselves when the system forgets them. For the last 2 years, I've been part of the EPOCH practice program at Fianza, a collective of experts by experience from across Europe. People who were not invited to the table out of charity, but because truth lives in the voices of those who have lived exclusion, homelessness, addiction, stigma, violence, and still stands. From that platform, I was invited to join EPOCH Practice Expert Committee, a small team tasked with reviewing and selecting 15 good practices from across Europe. And from day one, I understood that this was not just another project. This was personal, this was political. This was about opportunity and who gets to shape the future of social responses in Europe. Our committee was made of a strong and thoughtful people. Pascal, a strategic and committed mind from Belgium, Sarah, whose clarity and social conscience gave direction, Georgie, structured, organized, a steady hand when debates become complex, and Bertha, grounded human, always bringing dignity back to the center. And then there was me, a peer, the man with lived experience, the one who once felt through the cracks of policies written by people who never lived the realities they were regulating. I won't lie, I entered this process with caution. Too often peers are invited for symbolic decoration, for a performance of inclusion, for a box to tick, but this time my voice was not just tolerated, it was respected. In every online meeting, in every document reviewed, in one on one one on in-person gathering in Brussels, I was not an accessory. I was not a token presence whose comments were politely ignored. I was part of the construction, the decisions, the direction, and that changed everything. And every time we listened, we reflected, we took it seriously, we engaged, and that is what dignity looks like in practice. Because participation, real participation, is not saying we heard you, it is saying what you said changed something. Real participation is not symbolic, it is transformative, and that is what I experienced in this committee. We reviewed dozens of applications from organizations across Europe, and we had to make choices, hard ones, not based on trends, on perfect English or big budgets, but based on impact, on courage, on whether a project stood with the people or just stood above them. And let me tell you something with total honesty. Good practice is not about perfection. It's not a shiny PDF or a clever slogan. Good practice is about values in motion and about people who refuse to give up, about frontline workers who show up with open eyes and open hearts, in even when nobody is watching, about peers who turn survival into service, about organizations who choose solidarity over bureaucracy. Because I have seen it, services can oppress or they can liberate. They can reduce harm or increase it. They can build autonomy or dependency. They can project dignity or destroy it. And yes, this work is political because homelessness is political, poverty is political, barriers to housing, to treatment, to basic human rights are political. And pretending they are not is part of the problem. Systems fail people and then blame the people for failing. But there is another way, and this process showed it to me. When knowledge is shared, change becomes possible. When lived experience and professional expertise work together, solutions become real. There is a quote that says, "Alone we survive, together we can change the world." And I have learned that to be true, not as poetry, but as strategy. Individual resilience is beautiful, but collective power is unstoppable. This guide of 15 good practices is more than a publication. For me, it is a political act. It says we choose to work differently, we choose to listen, we choose participation, we choose equality, we choose humanity over hierarchy. To Fianza, thank you for not inviting me, but for respecting me, for giving me space without fear, for providing that inclusion is not a slogan, it is a practice. To my colleagues on the committee, thank you for arguing with me when it mattered, for listening when it was difficult, and for building something real together. And to every peer worker, every expert by experience, listen to this. We are not side notes. We are not the second thought of policy. We are not just lived experience. We are lived expertise. We belong in evaluation, in design, in leadership, in change. This is not the end. This is an invitation. Let us move from participation to power, from service delivery to shared responsibility, from survival to transformation, because dignity is not a luxury, it is a right, and solidarity is not charity, it is justice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for this inspiring speech and all your hard work in the expert committee, but also all the activities that we are doing in EPOCH practice. And I'm so happy that you feel comfortable working with us, and it's the same. We feel comfortable working with you. So thank you very much, Martinho. And
Thank you.
now, you're welcome. Now we're going to move to the first presentation, Empowering Voices by Balint. I think you are in the room, and the floor is yours for 7 minutes.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I am Balint Misetics from the Municipality of Budapest, and it is an honor to present today on our approach to the inclusion of people living in homelessness in the making of the city's new 10-year strategy adopted in 2022. The municipality provided plenty of opportunities for homeless citizens to make their voices heard throughout the development of the strategy. We organized 13 well-advertised participatory forums in overnight shelters, temporary hostels, daytime centers, and also one forum among formerly homeless public housing tenants. These forums altogether reached more than 200 people. In several of the events, the mayor or the deputy mayor was also present. offering participants a rare chance to address top officials directly. The mayor presence was also useful in a practical sense, since it helped draw participation. But I should stress that it is not only important for homeless people to be able to meet with decision makers, it is just as important for decision makers to be personally exposed to the unfiltered feedback of the poorest city dwellers. These forums involved many, yet they only allowed limited time for deeper discussions. It was for this reason that we also organized a council of experts by experience through a two-day workshop consisting of plenary sessions and small group exercises. A smaller group of people with a direct experience of homelessness could gain more insight into the strategy making process and could express their opinions in more detail. Participants were selected through an open call, advertised through posters in virtually all the establishments that provide some kind of services to homeless people in the city. The selection process meant to ensure an appropriate representation of the homeless population in the city in terms of age, gender, educational level, and living situations. From around 70 applications, 25 people participated in the interactive workshops, which were importantly co-facilitated by two formerly homeless activists. Participants received printed drafts of the strategy, shared their impressions directly with the mayor, and also delegated one member to speak at the city assembly when the strategy was voted on. Besides evidence-based policymaking, the recognition that homelessness is mainly about housing affordability, participation was a core principle of strategy making for the following four reasons. First, it is the duty of the municipality to include those citizens who are most directly affected by the problems and policies that constitute the subject matter of the strategy. This is rather straightforward. Second, participation also has intrinsic value, especially for people who are often excluded from such opportunities of public deliberation. Participation can also improve policy quality, since evidence-based policymaking is not only about research and the analysis of quantitative data, but also about the kind of qualitative evidence that the first-hand knowledge of service users provides. And finally, the participation of homeless people was also a political statement about the membership of homeless people in the community of citizens of equal worth, an axiom which is frequently overshadowed both in public discourse and unfortunately by the day-to-day operation of homeless services. For the rest of the presentation, I will focus on these two last aspects and how they can also strengthen the desirable reorientation of both housing policy and our understanding of homelessness. So homelessness often appears intractable. The crux of the message is, however, rather simple. People are homeless because they cannot afford housing. Still, much of what governments and cities do is not about addressing the structural roots of the problem, but about decreasing its visibility. In general, homelessness services face the limitation of trying to directly ameliorate a problem, which is ultimately the consequence of wealth and income inequalities, without being able to address these inequalities. However, another important obstacle to more effective and equitable policy responses relates to the social construction and public perception of the homeless as an other group of people who, for some inexplicable reasons, need not or cannot be housed as the rest of the citizenry. Now, the charitable and punitive responses to homelessness might appear as opposites of each other, and this opposition has a certain validity, of course, because soup kitchens and shelters are more compassionate responses than police harassment. Yet compassion does not pay the rent. And the charitable understanding of homeless people as hopeless, vulnerable, indigent, in need of often paternalistic care, and the kind of vilifying discourse that tends to accompany the criminalization of homelessness, which is a very important policy here in Hungary, are also very different from each other. However, neither is particularly conducive to the understanding that those who lack housing are also citizens who have valuable experiences of the actual functioning and dysfunctions of social and housing policies, as well as informed opinions, and most importantly, legitimate expectations about how it should be changed, and who should therefore be involved in the process of decision making. The often excessive and sometimes exclusive focus on personal vulnerabilities, such as mental illness or addiction of homeless people, which often characterizes, especially in Hungary, not only the public discourse, but also the professional discourse on homelessness, can of course be counterbalanced by theoretical arguments and empirical studies, but they can also be challenged by how homeless people themselves connect their experiences to the structural problems of housing affordability. Stressing the issue of housing to the extent that the strategy does might seem suspect among decision makers or homeless service providers. It does resonate, however, with the understanding of homeless people themselves, which is noteworthy in itself, and it can also enhance the validity and credibility of the overall policy orientation of such a strategy. And finally, providing opportunities for people living in homelessness to present and express themselves not only as clients, but as citizens whose voices matter, as citizens who matter, is valuable not only because of its ability to contribute to more appropriate policy responses, but also because of its potential in cultivating an understanding of the homeless, which is the prerequisite of any truly suitable policy response, not as a separate and particular group of people, but as citizens of equal worth who need housing just as everybody else and who also deserve housing just like everybody else. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much. To be honest, I lost track of time. I don't know if it was 7 minutes or not, but well done. If you want to know more about this project, this brief, it's brief number 1 in the compendium. It doesn't mean that it's the best one of them all, even though it's a very good one. But yes, and if you have any questions, just make sure that you write them in the chat or you keep them in your mind, because we're going to have a Q&A time after the next presentation. Thank you, Balint. The next presentation is called Mixed Living. It's a practice coming from the Netherlands. And now I give the floor to Jora and Nico to tell us more about it. And it's in the compendium, brief number 4, I believe.
Yes, hello, Arnaud. I'm looking for the presentation. I'm sorry. Okay, I think you should share it if you have it.
Yes, I will do it.
Hang on, I have it. Okay, it's there.
No worries.
So I hope you'll see this. Well, thank you for selecting our project and our concept of mixed living. We're very happy with this, of course, and also for having us present the project in this meeting. My name is Jora Wolterink. I work for Stichting the Tussenvoorziening. My colleague Nico is also in this meeting. He is the expert on mixed living. I'm a policy officer and I'm a liaison for European projects, so that's why I'm here. And we are very enthusiastic about mixed living ourselves, so we are happy to share our knowledge on this. Mixed living is a way of housing two groups of people in one project. It's people who have experienced homelessness and people who have no experience in homelessness. We do this projects for some years now. And well, we have seen as a social organization focused on homelessness that people who are homeless often have a lack of social network. You can imagine once being homeless, you start sleeping on the couch of your network, of your neighbor, of your friends, of your family. And after some times, these relationships get harmed by this. You cannot, don't have places to go anymore. Once being homeless, it's very difficult to start new relationships. And after being housed again, you lost your capabilities of building these relationships. So we think it's very important to build on these social networks. And we think this starts with being a good neighbor in concepts like these mixed living projects. This neighborship is very important. We also see that mixed living is a sustainable housing method that leads in the end to less costs for society. So what we do is we have clients on a waiting list waiting for homes. We select our clients by whether they are able to live in projects like these, so whether they are able to live in communities. So this means we select them on having an addiction or mental issues. It's not said that they cannot have them, but it's very important they should be able to live with other people. And the housing corporation, they select the people who don't have experience in homelessness, and they select on the motivation of people to be able to live in a community like this, because together they are building the community and they are undertaking activities to start new communities. So we are placing a social worker in all these projects, and he or she is initiating activities with the community, and especially in the beginning of this project, she's initiating these things like having dinners together, doing games together, walking clubs, reading clubs, everything to get to know each other and to know your neighbors and to know where to go to. So it's housing first in a mixed setting. We have a focus on the potential benefits and the challenges of the community. We do this in close cooperation with the housing corporations. There are several here in the area. They are all a fan of the mixed living projects. So over the years, they've seen the success of these types of projects. So they know how to find us and the other organizations in the area. And the municipalities are also enthusiastic about this because they see it's a sustainable way of housing. The social organizations we cooperate with are organizations like ours, who help homeless people, but sometimes they have a focus on a several target group like elder people or women. So we do this in all kinds of ways. One example is our project called Live In. It started in 2020, and we were appointed 120 apartments by the housing corporation in this project, of which 36 were for clients of the Tussenvoorziening. So as I said, we appointed also a social worker in this project, a project manager for building the community. And it started very well, and it went so well that we could leave the project after 3 years, which is a big success for us because our clients stayed and still live in this project without social support. So in the beginning, they get lots of social support for legal issues, for financial issues, for living issues, and also for guiding in being a good neighbor. And after 3 years, we leave and they stay in their new community. Some numbers, we've not only we, but in the area of Utrecht, there's been 25 mixed living projects. The last 11 years, we've housed 250 individuals in these types of projects, and the housing stability rate is 93%. So this means that for most of the people, this is a very successful way of living and starting the new life after being homeless. And if you have questions, we are very willing to answer them. And if you want to know more about our approach, please find us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this presentation. I think it's a very impressive program by the scale of it, really. So now we're going to have a time for Q&A. I don't know if we have any questions in the chat already, as Cecilia says no. There is one, right? You can also raise your hand and ask it directly live in the meeting if you want, but we have a first question from Vincent. It is to Jora on the mixed living project.
How do we
So,
select?
so to see it, you have to click on chat.
Yeah, I see the question. Yeah, and I think Nico, do you also see the question? It's about the selection process of our clients. How do we do that? These are the people on our waiting list, I guess, and do we have a form for them? No, we ourselves select the people that think are able to live in a project like this.
Yes, and colleagues of us are experienced with the clients and experienced with the projects, dus they know how to match the two together.
Yeah. And what happens if they suffer from addiction? Addiction and psychological problems?
Well, when most clients are vulnerable for addiction, but when you when it's hoe noem je dat? Wanneer het dominant is.
If they can control it, then it's okay, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you wake up and your only thought is, I have to score, then mixed living is not the right place to be.
No. I guess this answers the question for now.
Yes. Thank you. I think we have a second question, but for Balint this time. Did you accompany the project with communication work, media outreach? If I lost it. If so, do you feel no? I think he's on the. Do you feel it had an impact regarding the general social construction of homelessness in your area?
Yes, thank you for the question. So we did accompany the project with some communication, but not too much, because we also wanted to sensitive about the extent to which someone just because of participating in such an event would also want to be shown in a media outlet or so on. I think it was like the message it sent was more felt perhaps in the homeless service provider field, in which it was quite a strong message that we gave such a strong emphasis. So we put such a strong emphasis on the inclusion of homeless people, and we took it this seriously, because this is not at all in our experience the usual practice at a lower level, in a more practical level. Unfortunately, homelessness is mostly interesting in the media when either it is very cold, or when the state-sponsored propaganda incites hatred against homeless people who are living on the street in Hungary. So there were a few media like reports, and those were very positive, but I don't think that this in itself had or could have much effect on the overall like public discourse. I should also stress, though, however, that this was not a one-time event, but when we were reforming the public assistance like cash transfer system for homeless people, we also held similar participatory forums more recently about our action plan on decreasing street homelessness. So this became a routine on part of the municipality, that from time to time try try to include as much as possible the actual experiences and expectations and valuable information of homeless people.
Thank you. Thanks. Another question in the chat for Jora. I don't know if you saw it already.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, I saw it. Well, the answer is usually it's half from half. In this project that I illustrated, it's not half from half, half. It's it's different from time to time, I would say. But Nico, if you have, if we do have a ratio, I would like to know. I think it's it differs from project to project. Thank you.
I think Nico is talking, but the mic is off.
Excuse. The most common the last years in mixed living project is 30% for our clients. Yes.
Okay, thanks. Another question for you from Joanna. Do you want to ask it live, Joanna? Or we just read your question? Okay.
I see the question.
I think they can see it, so I think we're good.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. How exactly the shared governance works between, well, of course we have contracts, and we share the one in the beginning we share an office with the other organizations who are working in the same projects, and there's where we meet each other and where we can talk to clients, and where we also have conversations and meetings with the housing providers, of course. Housing corporations often have new living complexes. How do you say it? Apartment buildings in town, and more they know that these kinds of projects work. So they are obliged to house certain part of homeless people, and then they do it through organizations like ours, and of course we have contracts for this. And the contracts for the homeless people in the project after in the beginning it's not directly their own house. I guess that's what you mean, their own contract. After 2 years, usually it is. So we flip the contract into their own contract.
Thank you for this answer. I don't know if we have any other questions. If not, you will always have the briefs to read, so even more information on the briefs. If there is no more questions, I think we can move on to the second round of presentations, with Ben, who is going to present and talk more about the streets to congregate homes in Paris. If you want to start presenting, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Arnaud. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I wanted to say on behalf of my colleagues, and all the organizations we work with, thanks also to the EPOCH practice panel, expert panel, for selecting this project. So I'm going to I hope you can see my screen. Let's have a look. Is that visible?
Yeah, it's not full screen yet, but it's visible.
Okay, so I can go full screen. I'll try it again, excuse me. Let's see if that works this time. I'm sure this one's going to work. I want to go here. Sorry, this is
problem.
Is that working?
It's not in full screen, but yeah, it is now. Perfect.
Is that working?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much. So yeah, my name is Rickey. I'm the Housing First Coordinator at Paris City Hall, and I'm here to talk about our Streets to Congregate Homes initiative. The initiative is part of a 15-point Housing First action plan we've implemented in Paris since 2021, including Paris City Hall, but also the state. I'll say a few words about the context, then talk about the idea for Streets to Congregate Homes and how it emerged, how we pilot tested it, and then how we mainstreamed it. So a few words about context. During our latest point in time count in January, Paris teams of volunteers met 3,507 rough sleepers, which is twice as many as all of the other 14 French cities that did a street count that year. The figures have also steadily rose, and we're now nearly at pre-COVID levels, despite a big bump in shelter beds. Not only have we seen an increase in numbers, but the questionnaires show a large number, around 2/3 of people are not even asking for shelters by calling the line we have. This is a sign that the proportion of chronically homeless people is also growing. So we have a major challenge around rough sleeping in Paris that we want to better address. But we are collectively working hard to do so, including through our housing policies. Thanks to a concerted effort over more than 2 decades, Paris City Hall with the state has reached the legal target of 25% of social homes in Paris. And pensions de famille, which I've translated as congregate housing first, sites are a part of this social housing mix. So when I talk about social housing, that means mainstream homes, but also these congregate sites. And these sites are generally a small building with around 25 studio flats with shared congregate spaces and a team of 2 hosts whose role is to propose activities and support people with access to the rights and services. Starting from nearly 0 of sites of this type in Paris in 2000, in the year 2000, Paris has now delivered 70 sites by the end of the last year, which is around 1,600 units. In line with her manifesto commitment, our current mayor, Anne Hidalgo, is also on track to funding 17 new sites, which is 1 for every arrondissement, by the end of her term in 2026. However, as this graph shows, only a minority of these units, around 17%, were sleeping rough immediately prior to entering the units. Most came from shelters or from other forms of housing like hotels, sofa surfing, temporary housing. So in 2021, as part of the Housing First plan, we asked, how do we ensure these housing units are more accessible to those sleeping rough? Before going on, I want to take a moment to tell you a story about a man we're going to call Bruno to protect his identity. Bruno had been sleeping rough for around 20 years. And for a number of those years, he'd been sleeping rough on Place de Budapest, which is just next to the Gare Saint-Lazare, so the Saint-Lazare train station in the 8th arrondissement. He lived there long enough to watch this brand new congregate housing first site, which is pictured here, being built from start to finish. He was supported by a charity called Au Captive, which is a street outreach team specializing in those with complex needs relating to mental health and addictions. And despite not being on any housing waiting list or having mentioned it to his outreach team, Bruno had decided over the course of the build that he would live in this site, which was named Amsterdam, named after the street that it's located on. So in the summer of 2022, unaware that the allocations process for this site was already well advanced, Bruno told his outreach worker, also called Arno, of his plans. Now, Arno took Bruno at his word and sent off an application. By November, against all expectations, Bruno was settled into his flat. Since, he hasn't slept a single night on the streets, and his street outreach team continued to visit him for around a year after he moved in, working closely with the charity that ran the site, called SNL, to ensure he got the support he needed. So how was it that Bruno accessed housing so quickly after such a long wait? Of course, it started with his application and his decision to move in, but it was also made possible by a partnership working between the 8th arrondissement, the Paris City Housing Department, which together decided to give local rough sleepers priority access to 4 units. Bruno was actually quite fortunate as well because he was rehoused after another candidate pulled out at the last minute. This local partnership working between outreach teams, the Congregate Housing First team, the Arrondissement and the Paris City Housing Department became the blueprint for streets to Congregate homes. So that was the inspiration. We decided to duplicate this great work in an evaluated pilot, and we were fortunate that in 2023, we were able to do the pilot on 4 new sites. Paris City Hall had 24 units that it made available to rough sleepers. So, in total, we rehoused 9 rough sleepers and a further 7 who had no fixed abodes, who were sleeping rough, sofa surfing, etc. So 66% of those rehoused were from the most acute end of homelessness. As this graph illustrates on the left, what was striking was how this initiative had driven up our overall allocation rates in new sites, but also in existing stock, from 28% to this group to over 56%. This initiative did raise issues. In particular, refusal rates by the NGOs who manage these sites were very high for chronic rough sleepers, predominantly because of the complexity of their support needs or concerns about their behaviours. We decided to mainstream the approach in our allocations process from 2024, whilst taking on board these challenges. So just a few words about mainstreaming. Since January of 2024, Paris City Hall has mainstreamed this approach, using it in a further 5 sites, which means we've worked on this sort of approach on 10 sites in total over the course of 2.5 years. Rehousing rates for rough sleepers and no fixed abode applicants has remained high, so it's 56% again in 2024. But we also sought to tool up the NGOs who run these sites to support homeless people with the most complex needs by integrating these professionals into our annual Housing First Action Learning Programme. In total, 45 professionals have now completed this programme, and more are involved in this year's cohort. To further support changes in practice, we've also supported a Congregate Homes Housing First Guide, which features 9 inspiring practices from the charities in Paris. It's available by clicking on that link. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Ben, for this interesting presentation. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of questions about it, but before we reach that point, we're going to have a second presentation. I also remind everybody that this practice is the brief number 5, if I'm not wrong. So if you want to find it quickly in the compendium. Thank you. So the next presentation and last presentation of the day will be Homes for Recovery. It's Luis and Abdullah who are going to present it now from Hogar, and it's in the compendium brief number 12. Okay, Luis, if
Hello.
you're ready.
Yes, I'm ready. My name is Luis. I'm the psychologist of Espacio Salud, which means health space. And this is Abdullah, which is a client and lives in our space. And I'm about to introduce this project. Okay, 1 second that I need to share the screen. Okay. Well, first of all, we are part of an organization called Hogar, which means something like home, yes, or something like that. And our job consists of trying to achieve that no one lives in the street. We exist since 1998, and we have housing first projects, employment projects, and also this health space, which I am about to introduce. Just some data to justify the existence of our project is that, as you can see, being in the street and having some kind of illness is a really problem for these people. 44% of homeless people suffer from serious illness. The life expectancy is much lower for people who live in the streets, and often they die from conditions that are treatable. And one very important issue is that there are some treatments, such as chemotherapy or organ transplants, that people cannot access these treatments if they live in the street. So here in Spain, we we found out that it was very important to develop some kind of center, some kind of place where people suffering from homelessness could have this kind of could stay and have a stability meanwhile they were receiving the treatments or improving their health. That's why they say why a specialized program is needed, because of these reasons, no? Because of the barriers that homeless people face to access healthcare, because this lack of places where they can rest after leaving the hospital, etc. Right? So what do we offer? We offer like 72 beds in different centers where people can at least have a bed, have meals, a bathroom, like stability to receive the treatments that they need and improve their health. We offer 24/7 support. We are a multidisciplinary team with occupational therapists, social workers, psychologists, social integrators. So we can offer this support 24/7. We also can offer for these people coordinations not only with hospitals and clinics, but also with social services, community social support, homeless services. So we can offer an integral attention, because our idea is not only that people that live in our center can receive the treatments and improve their health, but also what we want is that when they leave the center, they can improve also in other areas of their lives, like residential or economical situation. We also offer I think it's also a very important part of our project that there are people receiving palliative care, and also some of the people that live here, they are in end of life. I don't know how to say it. They are about to die, and they need like a safe place and with dignity to live these last days. So that's also something that we can offer. And in general, these assistants, so they can empower and they can improve their lives. So not only their health, but also the rest of their lives are better when they live. Okay, forgive me because I'm a bit nervous, as you can see. This is some data from the impact in general. This is a 67.5 participants that are recovering from medical issues. But not only this, as I was saying, but there's also improvement in the quality of life in general, in residential situation, administrative and economic situation, and well, as you can see, 14% of people are receiving end of life care, so we can also offer this dignity in the end of their lives. And something that is very not the most important thing, but also it's important, is the economic efficiency of this project, which means that there's a reduction in number of hospitalizations, because people living in the streets, they go more often to hospital than people that live here. So it's also economic. There's a high efficiency of this project. I have been very fast explaining all of this because Abdullah is here with me, and he's open to share a little bit about his experience living here. And so I don't know if you are open to say something about how you feel here. How long have you been here, Abdullah?
Yeah, like 2 months and like 2 weeks.
2 months and 2 weeks,
Yes,
right? Yeah. So is there anything that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so far my experience here is good. Been take care of everything medically and about housing, everything. I'm enjoying the place. I'm recovering from my neck injury. I'm feeling safe here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
We are happy to offer this for you so you can recover.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I was too fast, but I have already finished. So
Perfect. Maybe. Sorry, I was gonna say maybe it's my fault. I put too much pressure on you with the 7 minute, but you did great. Thank you both for this presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think we already have some questions. It's time for the Q&A. we already have questions in the chat, I think. Yeah, we have one
Yes,
from
we
Balint.
have two questions. The first one is for Ben, about how do you calculate the rehousing rate for rough sleepers, and what does this exactly mean?
Thanks for the question. It's pretty straightforward. So I may have lost you a little bit because I talked about two different kind of populations, if you like. So we had 24 units were made available during the pilot year. So we literally 24 homes that we had to allocate. And of those homes, we rehoused 9 people who were sleeping on the streets the day before they moved in, basically. And 7 who had no fixed abode. So many of them had periods of street homelessness, but also were sofa surfing or having other situations, but they weren't stabilized in the shelter. So that's how we got to the calculation of 66% of people rehoused in those units were acute homeless, if you like. And then I also talked about all of our allocations in these units, because we have 1,600 in total. There are 1,600 units in Paris. And some of the available housing comes from people who have left their existing units. So that's why I called the old stock. But also when we deliver new units, that's the new stock. So when you take into account all of the new allocations in new stock and the allocations in old stock, we have around 56% of acute homeless people who are being rehoused. Does that make sense? So yes, when you take the zoom out and you take all of our allocations in these types of units, then we're looking at just over half now. When it was just below a third.
Thank you.
28. Yeah, sorry, it's a bit complicated or how allocations process. I didn't lose anyone else.
Thanks. We have a second question, this time for Luis. What are the improvement of the residential situations at the exit of the program? Do people find a permanent housing situation when they go out? And how long do they stay on average in the program? 3 questions in one.
Okay, thank you for the questions. My boss is right here because he knows much better the data than me, so I will translate the questions into Spanish. Well, I can say that more or less the second question is easy for me because I think that on average they stay here like 1 year and a half or something like that. Están como 1 año y medio aquí de media la gente, más o menos.
Tenemos este año 11.
So 11 months is the average from this year. And the first question, let me translate it to him. Preguntan si en general las salidas son a vivienda permanente, como si sabemos porcentaje de gente que sale con vivienda estable o gente que vuelve a...
Tenemos en el año 24, ¿vale? Un 35% de salidas autónomas, que significa que se han ido a una vivienda en el mercado privado, de 35. Una habitación o sí, un 35%.
Y el resto, pues, no me podemos...
Y el resto desde un enfoque de derechos a un sitio de discapacidad, un sitio de mayores.
Vale. Okay, more or less. Well, if you understand Spanish, probably you understand what he said. If not, it's okay. I will translate for you. 35% of people who live here end up going to how do you say it in English? With a home, right? 35%. Then they get a home with a job, with these kind of things. There are the other 65%, it depends, but there are lots of people who go to a specific project regarding their issue. For example, if you are 65 years old, you go to an elderly, I don't know the name, shelter or something like that, elderly place. If there is a mental health problem you can go to this mini residence. Yeah, they know. If you 14%, I think son 14% los que mueren. I think that 14% they die during the stance here. So I don't know if more or less I answered this question.
Yeah, I think you did. Thank you very much. It's always nice to hear a little bit of Spanish also. Another question for Ben this time. I don't know if you saw it, Ben, in the chat. Can the people housed in the congregate housing also move to individual social housing at one point if they choose to It's a question from Joanna.
Thank you, Yana. Yes, but they don't have to. So congregate housing sites are designed to be permanent housing, and they are social homes, but they can move into what you call a kind of classic social home if they wish to, and they're one of the considered a high priority group. So that we have a fast track allocations process in Paris, which includes homeless people, but also people leaving these congregate housing first sites. So yes, and they can do so relatively quickly if they have all the right paperwork, basically.
Thanks. I don't see any other questions. I think we asked them all. Thank you, Ben, Luis, Abdullah, for the presentations. Very interesting. Thank you very much. And we are done with the brief presentations, and now we are moving towards the end of the webinar with a conclusion by Sarah Coupechoux. We had a lot of speakers today, but Sarah is the last one. And I invite her to take the floor right now. She's somewhere in the screen. I see you now. Salut, Sarah.
Bonjour. Thank you very much, everyone, for this really interesting webinar. First of all, and to conclude this really interesting moment altogether, I would like to remind everyone of the incredible work that EPOCH has done in recent years. Thanks to the excellent work of EANSA, homelessness has been put on the European agenda, which was a real challenge as it was not strictly speaking a matter of European Union. And yet in 2021, 27 countries committed to ending homelessness, and it was not an easy work to gather everybody around this topic. The EPOCH platform has enabled extraordinary work to be done on the issue of data, for example. Now the OECD has been commissioned to work on this subject, and a project involving 35 cities plans to count homelessness across Europe. On the financial side, EPOCH's work has brought institutions such as European Investment Bank, the European Commission, and the Council of Europe, Development Bank, to the table to speak about homelessness. It was not an easy work too. And finally, EPOCH has enabled those who develop solutions to meet, visit innovative projects in several cities and meet the people concerned. And I wanted to speak about that because the work presented to you today is therefore part of the general Europe-wide dynamic. And I think it was important to emphasize this. I would like to thank Arnaud and the EPOCH practice team for their trust and for the opportunity to participate in this expert committee and discover many incredible projects across Europe. I was learned a great deal from this experience about the ability of those involved in the fight against homelessness to create new solutions and adapt responses to local circumstances. Above all, I have learned the importance of involving the people concerned in the development and monitoring of projects. As said, we said during the webinar, and it's also the need to understand and get to know homeless people in order to be able to offer appropriate responses. You don't support a single man who has lived on the streets for 20 years in the same way as you support a young person who left child welfare too early or a woman with children. I also know the impossibility of acting alone and the imperative to work hand in hand with associations, institutions, and stakeholders in health, employment, and of course, housing. And finally, these projects remind us that homeless people must find their place in society again, in housing, of course, but above all, alongside each and every one of us. The commitment of social workers and the involvement of volunteers will not be enough. These projects show us that homelessness is a social issue is political and not an individual one. It is all citizens who will shape the policies of tomorrow. And in the context, political context of Europe, it's really important to remind that. We can therefore see how sharing practices, understanding how others work, and drawing inspiration from our peers can advance the cause. But, because there is a but, these projects also tell me how important one thing is, the existence of housing that is affordable for the most vulnerable members of the society. We are on the cusp of an historic turning point in Europe. A European Commissioner for Housing has been appointed. A plan for affordable housing must be in place before the end of the year. But we do not yet know what choices the Commission will make, because a choice must be made today that will set the tone of housing policy for years to come. We will create a new housing market for the middle class, or we will set out about creating a secure, low-cost public housing stock that meets the need of both the most vulnerable ones, including the homeless people, and households that are unable to find housing in employment areas. Are we going to favor institutional investors and their profitability requirements, or are we going to bring these magnificent projects to life by enabling those in need to find a place where they can once again build a future? Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. And thank you for working with us the whole time. We started the work together also early 2024, so it was very nice to work with you. Thank you. So this is the end of the webinar right now. Just to let you know that the compendium will be available on the Fianza website after this webinar, and also on the Fianza website you will be able to download every brief individually. We are going to share the briefs in the next newsletter and also on our LinkedIn account, so please share as much as you want. Do not hesitate to read the brief, share them with your networks, contact the promoters, as we said, connect with them. It would be a win for us and for everybody, I think. This webinar will be available on our YouTube channel in the coming days. And yeah, thank you all for attending this webinar, asking all your interesting questions. And thank you to the brief promoters that joined us today and the experts from the expert committee for their hard work with us. Thank you very much and have a great week. See you at the next activity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.